All right, back for another beer review, and today I am reviewing a beer that is actually a collaboration between the Two Roads Brewing Company out of Stratford, Connecticut, and Lawson's Finest Liquids out of Warren, Vermont. And this is their Typecast. So this is a New England Farmhouse IPA, at least that's what they're calling it here on the can. It says it's an ale brewed with white cedar and balsam fir. It comes in at 6.5% alcohol by volume, no IBUs listed, and at the time of review, this beer is just over 4 months old. So I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Scott. He hooked me up with this can. We hung out at a bottle share in late August with Scott and his brother Dan, and he had a few beers that he wanted to give me, and this was one of them. Now, I typically don't review like IPAs over I try not to do it over 2 months old, and this one is a bit over 4 months old, and that's not the fault of Scott, and it's the fault of me to an extent. But this beer showed up in late August with a canning on date of 6/1/18. So when it showed up, it was almost 3 months old anyway. I sat on it for a month. Here we are at 4 weeks. Whatever, we'll see how it is. But it's crazy when beers show up fresh, almost 3 months old. That's just, nowadays that shouldn't happen, but it does. Anyway, so they have a little spiel here on the side. It says brewed with white cedar boughs and balsam fir tips, dry hopped with both Connecticut and Vermont grown hops. So I believe the white cedar boughs are from Vermont and the balsam fir tips are from Connecticut. So yeah, the cool collaboration between these, or the cool thing about the collaboration between these two is that all of Lawson's Finest Liquids, all their canned beers, are actually brewed at Two Roads because Two Roads does a lot of contract brewing. So this one sounds quite interesting. We'll see how it is at 4 months old. I'm not expecting it to be some huge, vibrant beer. We'll do a bit of a roll. I have no idea what to expect, but a New England Farmhouse IPA, probably from the ingredients more so than the look of the beer, but we'll see. Give this a crack, give it a pour. Let's get into it. Actually, no, that's pouring out like a New England style IPA of some sort. Farmhouse ale definitely has some nice cloudy characters to it. So yeah, as you can see, that is a New England style IPA. It has this bright yellow color. Again, a lot of times on camera it comes off a bit more dull, but bright yellow color, about a finger of an off-white head. Very, very murky, fine particulates floating around. That head was somewhat creamy, but now it's turning into like a soapy kind of head, so whatever. Doesn't matter, not really. Let's get a nose. Definitely picking up on that cedar. It has like a very woody note to the nose between that and the balsam fir. Now, I'm unfamiliar with balsam fir. I don't know if that's spruce tips or a different kind of spruce tips. I'd imagine it's something in that area. But it does, yeah, it has like a very slight piney, sprucey thing going on, like almost like a cool mint sensation. There is some underlying citrusy components to this one, more of like an orange tangerine than anything else. And not full on juicy, a little bit of like the orange peel, like a sweeter orange peel, a sweeter tangerine peel. Very slight spiciness, like almost coriander scent to this one, which is kind of weird. I don't know if that's coming from the yeast they're using or actually if the cedar and the balsam fir is kind of combining to produce this unique nose. Yeah, regardless, this smells pretty interesting, even at 4 months old. So let's get into it. Cheers, everybody, and thanks again, Scott. I do appreciate it. Very interesting. This is really coming off as a heavy, like West Coast style IPA because there's so much of that cedar and the balsam fir. It has a very resinous character to this one and very piney and sprucey. The finish is full on dry with this lingering floral cedar component. Very interesting. The body is straight up medium, or the body is straight up medium bodied, 6.5% appropriate. It has a nice crisp, effervescent kind of mouthfeel to it. Very spritzy, decent carbonation on this one. Kind of jumping on the palate a bit. The one thing I can say about this is very easy to drink. As you can see, I'm taking many sips here. That dryness is building though. By the time I'm done with this can, I probably wouldn't want more. I know a lot of people like dry beers because it wants you to drink more. And when you're drinking the can, sure, that's fine. For me, it builds up a bit too much on my palate to drink, you know, multiple cans of something. This one, I'd be one and done, especially at a tall boy can. I'd be one and done. But right up front, you're hit with more of that citrusy character that I was talking about in the nose. Sweeter orange, sweeter tangerine, maybe even a touch of like a lemony, almost like a lemon juice, almost like a slightly acidic tart, a lemon juice up front. As it passes through the palate, a little bit of that like coriander, like spice component, and then it finishes with more of the floral cedar, balsam firm tips. It's very piney, a little bit of that cooling mint sensation that I get a lot of times from spruce beers. It's very unique. I'll give this beer that. It's very unique, and I'm not hating it, but I'm also not loving it. It's one of those beers where it's like, it's really cool to try once, but would I ever go back to it? I don't know. I don't know if I would. It's pretty tasty. It's a solid beer. I'd be curious if any of you out there have had this beer, because this one is kind of confusing me in a way. The cedar and the balsam firm, they're a bit more boisterous on the palate than I anticipated. So that's cool, but it's also something that I haven't really experienced almost at all ever when it comes to drinking beers. I mean, I've had cedar in beers, I've had spruce tips, balsam firm. Like I said, I think they're kind of similar. Never had them in conjunction with something that's supposed to be a farmhouse, New England style farmhouse IPA. So it's all over the place. I think it's pretty cool. As personal enjoyment goes for me in terms of a score, I would give Typecast New England style farmhouse IPA from Two Roads and Lawson's Finest, I'm going to give it a flat 3.5. And the reason I'm giving that instead of a higher grade is just because this typically isn't my wheelhouse. It's one of, I like the New England aspect of it. I like those citrusy, or the juicy citrusy characters up front. The cedar and the balsam firm are nice, but very confusing to my palate, and it's something that I don't have a lot of experience with. But I will say it's very interesting, and if you do see this in your neck of the woods, even right now, I would pick this up. Even at 4 months old, it's drinking pretty well, I'd say. Again, I don't know what it's like fresh, but for a 4-month-old IPA, even of the farmhouse variety, I think it's drinking pretty well. And like I said, it's very interesting, unique. So that's kind of what I like to try, is unique beers, interesting beers, beers that sound like they'll be a lot of fun to review. So anyway, that was a Typecast New England style farmhouse IPA from both Two Roads and Lawson's Finest. It gets 3.5 out of 5. Interesting beer, very unique beer. Was a lot of fun reviewing it. I'm probably going to finish the can though. I mean, like I said, I'll probably be one and done with this, but it was pretty cool to try. So thanks again, Scott. I truly do appreciate it. And thanks to everybody for stopping by another beer review. Until the next one, cheers.